Welcome to Trig Unit video number 3. In this one, we're going to be talking about special right triangles. The special right triangles are sort of like formulas that help you find sine and cosine. Today, we're just going to be talking about how to find those other side lengths, okay? So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of show you why they work by using Pythagorean theorem. So, for example, on this left side, this triangle has side lengths of 30, 60, and 90. So we call it the 30, 60, 90 triangle. Across from 30 is what I'm going to call the short side, and across from 60 is what I'm going to call the long side. The longest side is the hypotenuse still, but I'm going to call it the short and the long just to identify the two different side lengths there. Now, if I take the short side, x, and I square it, and I add it to the other side, x squared to 3 squared. The square root of that should give me the hypotenuse. Well, let's check to see if that actually works. So this is just 1x squared plus, if I square that square root, that's just going to be 3x squared. 1x squared plus 3x squared is 4x squared. And what's the square root of 4? 2. Square root of x squared, x. So the hypotenuse is 2x. This just happens to be the exact ratio that occurs if your angles are 30, 60, and 90. Now, there is a shortcut I'm going to kind of go over right here down below, and that is if you want the hypotenuse, that's 2x. So you're just going to take this x value, the short side, times 2. If you want the longer side, that's x short side times the square root of 3. Those two are pretty easy peasy. It's not that difficult. Now, what's a little bit trickier is what if you don't know the short side yet? If you don't know the short side yet, think about how you would undo both of those. If I wanted to undo multiplying by 2, I would divide by 2. So you can either take the hypotenuse divided by 2, or if I wanted to get rid of the square root of 3, I could take the long side and divide it by the square root of 3. Voila. So you can take your pick. How do you pick? Which one do you know? Usually you're only going to know one of them. Okay, moving on to the 45, 45, 90 triangle. Again, I'm going to prove to you why this works on the top. If I take the square root of x squared plus x squared, now why are those both x? Because these are both 45. So if the angles are both 45, the sides are both the same as well. And really, again, that's 1x squared plus 1x squared. That's 2x squareds. I can take the square root of x squared and make it just x, but I can't take the square root of 2. So therefore, your hypotenuse is x square roots of 2. So the hypotenuse is going to be the leg times the square root of 2. Or just the leg square roots of 2. Now, if I wanted to reverse that and get the leg by itself, I would divide by the square root of 2, so it is the hypotenuse divided by the square root of 2. That's it. The nice thing about the 45, 45, 90 is that both side lengths are the same, so once you have one, you have the other leg as well. Now, I'm going to go ahead and erase that Pythagorean theorem proof part at the top. If you need to go back in the video so you can write it down because you want it, then go for it. It's not super necessary, so I'm not going to leave it on there to make it look a little less messy. In fact, I will do that and erase my little indicators as well. Okay. First thing you have to do is decide which type of triangle you have. On this first one right here, you have a 30, 60, 90. If it helps you and you want to write the 60, go for it. But as soon as you see that 30, it has to be a 30, 60, 90, because that's the only way for it to make 180 degrees. So we have our short side across from the 30, longer side across from the 60, and this is our hypotenuse across from the 90 degrees. And what I kind of set up here was that if you want the hypotenuse, it's the short side times 2. Wait, I don't know the short side yet, so I've got to wait a second. I do know that the shorter side is the long side divided by the square root of 3. So that means that x would be 20 divided by the square root of 3. Now, you're not allowed to leave a square root in the denominator, so what you do is you multiply by 1 in the form of the square root of the denominator. What that means is square root of 3 over square root of 3. That's 1, because when you divide something by itself, it's 1. But what that does is the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 becomes the square root of 9, which is just simply 3 without a square root. And the top part is just going to be 20 square root of 3. That's it. You can't really do a ton with that. It's just 20 square roots of 3 over 3. If that is the shorter side, then the hypotenuse is 20 square roots of 3 over 3 times 2. Well, 20 times 2 would be 40 square roots of 3 over 3. Or you can multiply by 2 over 1, because 2 is the same thing as 2 over 1. So you're multiplying by 2 on the top. The bottom part stays 3, because 3 times 1 is 3. And those are your two answers. Okay, moving on to the next one. I'm going to do all the 30, 60, 90s first. On this one, I know the hypotenuse. Y is going to be my shorter side. X is going to be my longer side. So I'm using H, S, and L for hypotenuse, short, and long, by the way. So if I want the short side, I take the hypotenuse divided by 2. So short side, y, is the hypotenuse divided by 2. And what is 6 square roots of 2 divided by 2? 3 square roots of 2. Now that I know that that side is 3 square roots of 2, my long side, x, is the short side times the square root of 3. Right there. Now, I can multiply square roots together. 2 times 3 is 6. So that's just 3 square roots of 6. And I forgot to say this before I started. I'll go ahead and pause. Make sure you write the x and y in that triangle. I realized it wasn't printed a little bit too late, so there they are. And on the third triangle, I've already got the 60, so that means this is the 30. So this is my short, long, and hypotenuse. Now I know the short, so the hypotenuse, y, is just 2 times the short. 2 times 8 is 16. And the long is the short times the square root of 3. So just 8 square roots of 3. So it doesn't always have to be complicated. I tried to get the more complicated ones out of the way first and then ease up. Okay, if you've got questions about those three, remember that these are our formulas right here that we're using for all of that. Because that's the pattern that happens with all 30, 60, 90. Now, I'm getting ready to move on to the 45, 45, 91, so I'm just going to kind of remind you, if you need the hypotenuse, multiply the leg times the square root of 2. If you need the leg, divide the hypotenuse by the square root of 2. So, for example, on this one, go ahead and mark your x and y. So if this side is 13, x is also 13, because they have to be the same on a 45, 45, 90. And since I have the leg, the hypotenuse is going to be the leg times the square root of 2. Done. On the middle one, 20 is your hypotenuse. So to get the leg, you take 20 divided by the square root of 2. And you can't leave that square root down there, so you multiply by 1 in the form of the square root of 2. Square root of 2 over square root of 2. That's going to give you 20 square roots of 2 on the top. And the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is just 2. Or it's the square root of 4, which equals 2. Now, if you can divide these two numbers right here, do it. I could not do that on the last one I did, right here, because it was 40 divided by 3, so I just didn't. Or sorry, it was 20 divided by 3 to start with. So I just didn't, I left it. This one you can divide, so we're going to go ahead and call that 10 square roots of 2, which means y is also 10 square roots of 2, because the legs of a 45, 45, 90 are the same. And my last one. This is the one where knowing the hypotenuse is a little bit easier. X is the leg, so we have to take the hypotenuse and divide it by the square root of 2. Now before you get too crazy and start rationalizing that denominator, look. What's the square root of 2 divided by the square root of 2? 1. So they sort of just cancel to 1, and this equals 9. So x is 9 and y is 9. Before I stop, zoom out so you can see all of the notes in case you need them. There they are.